Hey everybody, this is Cherokee Edwards from Cherokee Edwards Inspires, where we're going to have shows here to talk about life, to talk about what makes your life special, what makes it better, and everybody working together, because together everyone achieves more. Acronym for the word team. Stay tuned and let's get it on. Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to another edition of the Cherokee Edwards Inspires. And I am built for round two. I hope you guys are ready for round two with Miss Jill Reece of
True Found Wise.
That's my girl. What's up, lady? How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cherokee. How about you?
Oh, good. I've been confined in the house, but hey, you better have a lot of good stuff in there like we do. So you watch movies, work out, do some papers and read, study. So we're making the best of it, right?
That's the best thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Stay positive.
Yes. Well, I tell you, Jill's brought a surprise with her. This is an educational segment, so I'm going to give way to her because she's an authority on a lot of the medical world and especially the natural healing and teaching us how to let our body or turn our body back into what it's supposed to do. So I want to let her have this segment and just educate us. So Jill, if you don't mind, just, educate us, teach us about what's going on and what you think and your thoughts on what's going on in America and the world now.
Well, thank you, Cherokee. I appreciate the opportunity. And I hope that your listeners listened to what we did just the other day, because then they'll have a good introduction of who I am, why I do what I do, and some of the premise upon that. Also, we did start to talk about, of course, the current issue at this point, which is the COVID-19 issue. And so, education never ends.
No.
It's even as a child, I knew if I ever stop learning, I'll start dying. And that's just the way I am. And fortunately, a lot of us are that way because it helps us to approach something with understanding so that we don't let anxiety take away. Anxiety and stress, that is your biggest foe when it comes to your health and wellness, spirit, soul, and body. Now, first of all, before we go on, I am going to read this disclaimer because we do live in an atmosphere that likes suing and all of this crazy stuff. And
happy.
So even though we're here just to share information with your listeners, this content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you have regarding a medical condition. So having said that, I am a registered nurse, nutritional therapy practitioner, and, reversed my own condition that they said was irreversible. However, just to really reiterate this, I'm not a miracle worker. I know how to find the weaknesses in the organs and glands. I come from a functional perspective to see where the body's out of balance in a foundational way. And then in my practice, I work through nutritional support, environmental and lifestyle support to get the body back in balance so it can do what it was created to do. And that's where the healing and repairing happens. So that's where the magic is. It's in how we were created, which is really pretty powerful. So when we're looking at the current situation with the virus and the scares and everything about that, there's really kind of three prongs out there that I'm seeing. There's the first prong of, well, what do we do if we're caught up in the house and things aren't being delivered? What can we do? Well, first of all, you have to understand there's a lot of advice out there that we spoke of the other day with hand washing and cleaning. Okay, great. Those are great things. However, the important part that people need to understand is you can clean yourself till you're blue in the face. But if you're exposed to something and you get it, what really matters at that point is how strong is your immunity?
Right.
And your immunity, yes, you can start doing what you're supposed to do today. However, it's what you did yesterday, the day before, and the months and the years before that are going to really determine how strong your immunity is. The good point is it's never too late.
Right.
It's never too early to start. So I would consider doing that now. So one vein of things that a lot of people have available in their homes, essential oils. So in my practice, it is a tool in my toolbox to use doTERRA essential oils. And when we look at that against what is given as antiviral type recommendations, generally, you can diffuse or put on your bottoms of your feet or hands, for example, helichrysum, melaleuca, clove, on guard, Melissa, respiratory blend. These things have been known to kill different agents that are in the air generally, and to diffuse those is a very powerful thing. So you're breathing them in, you put them on your feet. There's also things you're going to see out there on the internet, which you may think, well, it might be true, it might not be true. And then as soon as you see something listed, you're going to see a lot of things debunking it. But one thing, there's a hairdryer therapy going around online on iMessenger. What's interesting is that really the viruses can't live above 130 degrees. Their cell walls, if you will, or the bodies of the viral being will open up and break up, and making the virus die at 130 degrees. So if you look at inhalation, just like people used to do when they had congestion in their head, they would get the water and they'd put their little head over it and the towel and just breathe in and out, and it would open up their sinuses and things. Well, that's going to increase the temperature. The boiling temperature of water is 214.
Right.
And so you cut it off at that point. Certainly it's going to be above 130, and you can do that. The recommendation I saw online, which was interesting, talking about the life of the virus and its replication, is if you don't have anything actively going on but you're preventative, do that twice a day for 5 minutes. And each time that you do it for the 5 minutes, then do it an hour later in that, and that would be one treatment. And so doing that twice a day, then their recommendation was, well, if you have something, do that 5 times a day.
Right.
So why not do that and incorporate essential oils like On Guard, that would come against different agents.
Right.
So those are just things that physiologically, if you look at a virus and what we do know about that, those things can be done as derived from that information as great supportive measures. There's also a homeopathic physician in town, Al Rothstein, that recommends elderberry 1,200 milligrams 3 times a day and lomadium 1 milligram 2 times a day. So, those are things that help support the immune system that are targeted at the virus. So that's another route to go. The route that I'm going to spend the mass majority of our time on today is in my nutritional therapy practice. There's a lot of educational information that comes my way. One of the companies that I work with primarily in the supplements that are very powerful in helping to bring correction and balance to my clients' bodies really quickly is Biotics Research Corporation. And one of their physicians who lives in Spain is Dr. Alex Vasquez. And his information is really powerful all the time in different areas, but he sent out this information, particularly about viruses and things that support the immunity. And that's a lot what I'm interested in sharing with the listeners today, simply because it's very timely. It's not difficult information. At the end of this, I will tell you basically a range of dosages, because I'm not going to give individual recommendations on this cast because I can't.
Right.
And that's one of the beauties of how I do what I do, because I do look at everyone bio-individually. So everything that I'm talking about here is based on a human body. It's not necessarily personal to anyone, because I don't know who your listeners individually are at the moment.
Right.
So, but there are important considerations that are antiviral recommendations reasonably for coronavirus. For one thing, it's general nutritional support, at least with a competent professional multivitamin, multimineral supplement. Making sure that various bases in that are covered. We're not talking about a 1-a-day vitamin or, particular kinds that are mainstream like that.
Right.
Or, the big box stores, you can go out and just buy their vitamins. Those aren't necessarily good for you. And that's why with my clients, when we start working together, I'm like, give me the ingredient lists of what you're currently taking. If it's right for you, absolutely, I'll tell you. If it's not, absolutely, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things in the mainstream supplements that are really not good, period, or not good for that particular person.
Right.
So the second thing would be make sure that you're eating protein. Because some of particularly even one of the supplements we're going to be looking at briefly today is an amino acid. And if you're not digesting your food properly, you're not going to get amino acids from your proteins. That digestive process is not going to happen. And digestion is a key thing that I work with my clients. And so making sure your digestion is working right is going to make a huge difference, because the seat of your immunity, as you know from our broadcast the last time, is in your gut. Exactly. How is the health of that small intestine and large intestine? That's where the rubber hits the road. A third thing is to avoid hyperglycemic foods. In other words, avoid the obvious, sweets or things that turn to sugar easily, like white rice, potatoes, breads. Those things turn immediately to sugar. And anytime that you increase your blood glucose level in your body, you're suppressing your immunity. So definitely staying away from those foods, especially now, but making sure even as a lifestyle that you're not overdoing it is really important for a lot of reasons. Also avoiding processed, low nutrient, high calorie foods. So processed foods kill. And there's a lot about that, but that's a general rule. If you read a label, then, and there's many ingredients on there, particularly what you don't recognize, don't eat the food. But honestly, you should be able to look at something and tell what it is. We should be targeting for a whole foods, properly prepared, nutrient dense diet. And by incorporating that as our lifestyle, it's going to naturally make our body in a better physical condition. When it comes to vitamin C, definitely vitamin C is a really good thing. And looking at vitamin C specifically, 1 to 2 grams 3 times a day, if something's going on, is just a general guideline to that. And I'm not going to be saying much more about that than that because vitamin C is a well-known thing to not only we think of it as boosting the immunity, but what it's really doing is it's helping to carry the toxins away that are present in your body, which can help your immunity then use that energy for other things. So there's 6 focused areas beyond general nutritional little things like I just mentioned that are very important. They're easy to mention. We're going to focus on vitamin D, vitamin A, zinc, selenium, NAC, which is that amino acid I was talking about, and glycyrrhizin, which is from licorice root. So there's basically 6 different things that we're going to just really focus on briefly because there is a lot to talk about. So let's first look at vitamin D. Vitamin D has been clinically proven to prevent respiratory infection in humans. Vitamin D, it's a fat-soluble vitamin. We're supposed to get it from our sunshine, but if you're not out in the sunshine or if you're wearing sunscreens that block the sunshine from absorbing into your skin like it's supposed to, you're not going to have vitamin D. And there's physicians out there that, like Dr. Mercola and others, that say your vitamin D blood level should be above 70. If it's above 70, you can't get cancer, is what they say. And that's a really good target. Where in the medical community, often if it's above 30, they'll say you're in okay range. But it's just because they're not aware of these other studies and the importance of it being much higher than that. So, of course, 50 is better, but 70 is much better, 70 to 100. But there's other benefits or mechanisms of vitamin D that come into play with infectious disease. Like it enhances vitamin A in the body, which we're going to talk about vitamin A specifically here in a little bit. But that vitamin D works with the vitamin A. It improves the barrier defense. So you think about the barrier defense being in the gut, in your immunity. Basically, the integrity of everything going on in your immunity is enhanced by vitamin D. Just bearing in mind that a lot of the cell walls, in fact, well, all of the cell walls, but a lot of what the cell wall contains, half of that should be healthy fats, the other half proteins. So these components are very important. Vitamin D improves the gut microbiota. In other words, those good, happy bugs that are supposed to be in the gut. Also enhances nonspecific innate immunity, that innate being what you're born with, to improve the defense against any infection, once again, set up in the gut. At birth and with proper breastfeeding from a healthy mom is the way it's supposed to be. Vitamin D modulates specific adaptive immunity in that it improves defense against infection. And so there's less autoimmunity. In other words, there's less conditions that are autoimmune conditions that can come forth. And just to give you examples, autoimmune illnesses can be anything from fibromyalgia, diabetes, arthritic conditions. There's lots and lots of autoimmune conditions. Vitamin D has been proven to reduce symptomatic inflammation, also neuroinflammation, so people that have tingling and problems in their hands and feet, that kind of a thing. Also improves the mitochondrial function. Mitochondria is what is like the little engines in our cells that make energy, and there's many of those little engines in every cell that are supposed to be making energy for us. And then lastly, in this particular list, it improves muscle strength and testosterone. So vitamin D is definitely super important.
Okay.
So other things it can clinically improve is mood. So it alleviates depression, seizures, migraines, hypertension, hyperglycemia, like in a diabetic type condition. That's a symptom that would happen. Alleviates different pains, helps alleviate arthritic issues. It's an amazing help in supporting people that have lifelong diabetic conditions, and then the reoccurrence, as I mentioned before, of cancer. So these are just general things that have been proven in different studies. And Dr. Alice Vasquez, in his study that he did just right in 2020, where we are right now, this whole talk of his perspective that I'm giving, if somebody would text me, if you're interested in hearing all of this information, I will personally send you a 45-minute video with slides that help you hear his narrative on this.
Right.
So what I'm basically am doing is encapsulating and just giving you some backup as to why these things are important. And so vitamin D also has a long history of use, safety. It's very affordable. It's available. And then, of course, all the other things that I mentioned. So next, let's talk.
Well,
After a break.
There you go. We're going to pause for sponsor identification, and we will be right back with Jill Reece.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All
right. Well, we're back with Jill Reece. And Jill, just kind of keep going with what you were talking about. You're making some really valid points in this educational format.
Okay. So we were talking about vitamin D. And first thing there is it enhances vitamin A. So let's talk about vitamin A.
Okay.
And the World Health Organization, along with the United Nations and UNICEF, issued this joint statement recommending that vitamin A be administered to all children diagnosed with measles in communities where vitamin A deficiency runs. Well, often deficiencies are worldwide. Even in the US of A, we have a lot of people that are malnourished. In fact, the majority of the population is because of our processed foods. And don't let that nutrients added to the processed foods fool you. They have to be something that's actually absorbable and usable by the body.
Right.
So paying attention to these things are super important. So just like vitamin D, there's some similarities in the use of vitamin A. It has a long history of use. It's safe, affordable, widely available. And yes, vitamin A and D do work together functionally at the same nuclear level. In other words, at the same level in the cell for immunity and basically tolerance of what's in our environment that wants to come against us. So vitamin A is essential for multiple functions, including for development and maintenance of normal vision, genetic expression, normal immune function, growth and development. So not only in children, but let's bear in mind, every body gets a new body every 7 years. Well, what do I mean by that? Because we don't all get necessarily reborn every 7 years, but our cells in our body in different speeds are all constantly replenishing to where every 7 years you're getting a whole new body. Wow. So depending on what you feed that body with, and if you're nourishing that body properly and eliminating the toxins, that's how we can grow younger. That's how we can grow more functional, depending on where you're actually at today. And, these different things we're talking about play important parts in this. So vitamin A is just one important thing in that particular mix. So it's commonly administered alongside vaccines. Now, this is interesting. And the World Health Organization put out an article about this, immunization, vaccines, and biologicals, talking about vitamin A supplementation. Vitamin A is commonly administered alongside vaccines, but then the drug pushers give all the credit to the vaccine. We don't hear about, and they got vitamin A with it, because number one, they're not mentioning it. Number two, they're not acknowledging the safety and effectiveness of vitamin A supplementation. And 3, without advocating for nutritional supplementation to prevent and treat a wide range of infectious diseases and non-infectious diseases, people just don't know that vitamin A is playing an important part. It's just like I've heard of the recipes for making a hand antibacterial, antiviral scrub, the hand.
The sanitizer?
Yes, using alcohol, aloe vera, and, oh, by the way, melaleuca. Well, that melaleuca is more powerful than those things. Those things are not, aloe vera is not bad, but alcohol just moves things away. It'll kill some things, but not to the spectrum that melaleuca will. So it's kind of interesting when we look at things. Sometimes we break down, well, what are the ingredients? Well, what's really making the magic happen? Besides your body, what's making things really happen? So I think it's interesting to look at that. And it's good that vitamin A is given when it is. So the next aspect we're going to look at is the glycohyrrazine, and I'm having a little trouble getting that out of my mouth at the moment. glycyrrhizin. And there was an interesting study that was put out that it was in the Lancet, which is a very renowned journal, back in 2003. And that was in issue 361, saying that glycosarin, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that word.
We can't even try it.
An active component of SARS-associated coronavirus. And it said how, of all the compounds, and it comes from licorice root, was the most effective and inhibiting of replication of the SARS-associated virus. Our findings suggest that it should be assessed for treatment of SARS. So in other words, what it is, SARS is that component of the coronavirus that's manifesting in people with the respiratory issues that sends people in the need of ventilation, that shuts them down. And that's the big part of this virus that scares people.
Yeah.
And especially if they're immune compromised, they have reason to isolate themselves and to be very careful and to be building their immunity very avidly and staying away from the things that crumble them. However, this licorice root compound was found effective in that specific condition, and the Lancet had reported about that in 2013. And I think that's very exciting because this information I'm giving you guys, it's not just, oh, that's interesting. What it does is it puts the power in the hands of the people to take care of their bodies, and not to have to wait, for the next thing that's going to come out, but to be doing healthy, good things right now.
Applied knowledge is power.
Yes. So there's a lot of historical antiviral effects using this licorice compound. And like I said, if you want to get the whole video with those slides, I'll tell you, but I know a lot of the people that are listening to us right now are lay people. So I'm going to not get too deep into things just because.
That's all right. Education is really good though.
It is good. So next we're going to talk about zinc. Zinc deficiency is extremely common in the global population. It contributes directly to increased death in a wide variety of infectious illnesses. Supplementation is repeatedly shown to reduce death from those wide range of deficiencies, and it's necessary to maintain, once again, mentioning barrier defenses. In other words, the gut stability, but also that being the barrier in your immunity and keeping that healthy. There is another really interesting thing. Zinc is necessary for the production of the thymus hormone thymulin, necessary for maintenance of various immune functions. So zinc deficiency does increase the risk for infectious disease via the immunosuppressant of that very hormone thymulin. So it's interesting, we think about these little vitamins and we take them for granted, but they are already in our food if we do the proper diet with properly prepared whole foods, nutrient dense. If our digestion's working good, we're getting zinc. Okay. But if we're not eating the right thing and if our digestion's not working right, it's very important that we supplement.
That's right.
And so there's also antioxidant benefits very much. And so I'll talk about the dosing of that toward the end. But it is very common for people to be low in zinc. And it's estimated that 30 to 40% of the elderly subjects, even in Detroit, Michigan area, have a mild to moderate zinc deficiency. And these patients respond via significant anti-inflammatory cardioprotective benefits to supplementing with zinc. at 45 milligrams per day. And this was put out by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, volume 91. So good information's out there. You have to look hard for it, but then you have to know how to assimilate it into your life.
Right.
So then we'll talk about selenium. Selenium is a really important supplement. A lot of my clients get on because it does help with detoxification. And it very much has been proven as an immuno supporting device when it comes to viruses and how they transmute in the body. Something that's interesting that Dr. Vasquez in this training points out is that the area that the coronavirus was actually made in China, that area is famous for the nutritional levels of the soils to be low in selenium, which suppresses the immunity. So those folks, unfortunately, are starting out at an immunosuppressed level. And we just need to be sure that we're not also in that number of immunosuppression. So we'll get to the recommended dose on the zinc at the end, or a range of that. The next thing we're going to look at is it's abbreviated NAC. It's basically a amino acid, acetylcholine or acetylcysteine, and it is used for also boosting the immunity, and it can be used as a preventative measure, or of course, if someone already is very immunocompromised. I won't get into it a whole lot because a lot of people aren't going to really understand what I'm saying when it comes to its interaction with the amino acid glutamine, which is important for gut health. So it works in conjunction with keeping your gut healthy, the seat of your immunity. So really, when we look at Dr. Vasquez's antiviral protocol, it's really four-pronged. As we've been talking about, it's antiviral, directing action against the virus itself using nutrients and botanicals and drugs, targeting the machinery and blocking viral mutations. In other words, keeping it from going on and changing and changing. And this anti-replication, this changing, that's a second prong of the protocol, inhibiting the viral's use of the human DNA and how it will replicate things so it can't hijack that process.
Right.
And the immunonutrition, supporting an occasional stimulation of cell-mediated and the type of immunity that runs natural at a cellular level in the body, and then cell system support. So supporting the intracellular system, that mitochondria that I mentioned. And basically the whole body health to optimize how it responds in an immune issue, to limit the damage, promote recovery, and prevent reoccurrence. So basically, the fact that these antiviral health crises exist in the modern times we live in is really indisputable evidence of the failure of the current system and the need not for new treatments within the same model, but for a new, better model suited for international distribution, disease prevention, and broad spectrum effectiveness. And that's building the body's immunity within itself and the power of that. So basically, when we look at vitamin D, Dr. Vasquez gives these recommendations for 1,000 units if it's an infant, international units, 2,000 for a child, 4,000 for adults. For vitamin A, we're looking at 100,000 units for an infant, 200,000 units for an older child after a diagnosis, and then, of course, more for an adult. As far as zinc, 30 to 50 milligrams per day, but making sure you supplement that with copper at 1 to 4 milligrams per day, because zinc and copper are two minerals that are antagonists to each other. They both use each other to stay in balance. So if you give way too much of zinc, you can actually deplete yourself of copper, and you don't want to do that because it's important too. So just making sure if you're supplementing with zinc to actually add some copper as well. Then selenium, and the selenium that I use in my practice is a methylated selenium, just like I use different types of vitamin and minerals, the way that they're made adaptable to the body. And it's important as to why I do that, but too much for, I think, this broadcast to get into it because our time's almost gone. But 200 micrograms as a basic dose of selenium or selenium methionine. But really for optimal dose, it needs to be 600 milligrams a day optimally. And that Also with N-acetyl-L-cysteine, the amino acid that I mentioned, 1,200 milligrams a day for prevention, or 6 to 7 grams a day if there's a severe viral infection. And then with that licorice root, Biotics has a great product, BioHPF, and 2 caps of that 2 to 3 times a day is optimal. So, there's different things that we've definitely talked about. I know it's kind of like a brain dump to give information and how to do it, but that's why I have my practice.
Yeah.
That's why, I had a great medical career, but then when I became disabled, I didn't know what the heck to do because everything of pharmaceutical device or surgeries wasn't for me.
Right.
And that's why it took so long to figure out and to compile, well, what the heck can I do to recover myself? But then after accomplishing that, it's like, I can't keep this to myself.
Right.
And that's why I have my practice, and I work with people in packages to help them through that journey.
Right.
So just letting your listeners know again, feel free to text me at 804-832-5233 if you would like a further conversation. You can also go to my website, which is truefoundwellness.com, true not false, found not lost, wellness.com, in order to just kind of get a brief overview, and you can sign up through there to become a client. And their acquisition of optimal health. That's what I love doing. And that's what I would love to help your listeners with. So stay healthy and say your prayers.
Yes, and wash your hands. No, but I'll definitely. I'm so proud to have you back on here, and I think this is very important. We might even have to do a third show because this was a lot. It's a lot for people to take in. But you guys, we definitely need to be with specialists and people. When I say specialists, I'm not just talking about the regular doctors and nurses of the hospital world. I'm talking about people that study the body and how to make the body work on its own. And so guys, please take heed to this, reach out to us if you need anything from Jill, and you can reach her directly as she is giving you the email address, the phone number, every way. And like I said, I want to have her on because I want to educate people so fear is not dominating our world as it is right now. All right. So keep you guys head up, keep your hands clean. God bless you. And just keep the faith. God's going to pull us through.